Thousands of years ago, in the ancient land of Israel, a terrifying war was brewing. Two fierce armies stood on opposing hills, facing each other across the valley of Elah. On one side stood the army of Israel, led by King Saul. On the other side was their bitter enemy, the Philistines. Instead of starting an all-out battle, the Philistines chose to intimidate their enemies with a psychological weapon. Out from their camp stepped their champion, a literal giant of a man named Goliath of Gath. Goliath was a monster of a warrior, standing over 9 feet tall. He wore a massive bronze helmet and heavy scale armor that weighed over 100 pounds. He carried a massive spear with a heavy iron tip, and a shield-bearer walked before him. Every single day, for 40 days, morning and evening, the giant walked out into the valley. His voice thundered across the hills as he mocked the Israelites, shouting, "Choose a man and have him come down to me. If he is able to fight and kill me, we will become your subjects. But if I overcome him and kill him, you will become our slaves and serve us." Hearing his terrifying roars, King Saul and the entire Israelite army were completely paralyzed with fear. No soldier dared to step forward to face him. Meanwhile, far away from the battlefield, a young boy named David was tending his father's sheep in the fields of Bethlehem. He was the youngest of 8 brothers, and 3 of his older brothers were serving in King Saul's army. One day, his father, Jesse, asked David to take some roasted grain and bread to his brothers at the battle lines and see how they were doing. When David arrived at the army camp, he ran to the front lines to greet his brothers. As he was speaking with them, Goliath stepped out from the Philistine lines and began shouting his usual defiance. David watched as the Israelite soldiers trembled and ran away in fear. David was deeply disturbed and furious. He looked at the soldiers and asked, "Who is this Philistine, that he should defy the armies of the living God?" When David's older brothers heard him talking, they became angry and told him to go back to his sheep. But David's fearless words quickly reached King Saul, and the king immediately summoned the boy. David stood before the king and boldly said, "Let no one lose heart on account of this Philistine. Your servant will go and fight him." Saul looked at the young boy in disbelief and said, "You are not able to go against this Philistine and fight him. You are only a young boy, and he has been a warrior from his youth." But David did not back down. He looked at the king and explained that as a shepherd, he had fought off both a lion and a bear with his bare hands to save his father's sheep. David confidently declared, "The Lord who rescued me from the paw of the lion and the bear will rescue me from the hand of this Philistine." Seeing the boy's unshakable faith, King Saul finally relented. He insisted that David wear his own royal bronze helmet and heavy armor for protection. But when David put them on, he could barely walk. "I cannot go in these," David said, "because I am not used to them." So, David stripped off the heavy armor. Instead, he took his simple shepherd's staff, went down to a nearby stream, and carefully selected 5 smooth stones. He put the stones into his shepherd's pouch, took his leather sling in his hand, and walked out into the open valley to face the giant. As Goliath moved closer to the battle line, he looked down and saw David. The giant sneered with pure contempt, seeing only a handsome, unarmed teenager. "Am I a dog, that you come at me with sticks?" Goliath roared, cursing David by the names of his gods. He shouted, "Come here, and I'll give your flesh to the birds and the wild animals." But David did not flinch. Looking straight up at the towering giant, his voice echoed with absolute authority through the valley. "You come against me with sword and spear and javelin, but I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. This very day the Lord will deliver you into my hands, and I will strike you down and cut off your head. The whole world will know that there is a God in Israel." As Goliath lunged forward to attack, David did not run away or hide. Instead, he ran quickly toward the battle line to meet him. Reaching into his bag, David pulled out a single smooth stone, placed it securely into his leather sling, and swung it with all his might. The stone flew through the air like a bullet and struck Goliath precisely in the middle of his forehead, the only vulnerable spot left exposed by his helmet. The stone sank deep into his skull. The giant instantly froze. His eyes rolled back, and like a massive falling tree, Goliath crashed face first onto the ground. David ran over, stood over the fallen giant, and pulled Goliath's own heavy sword from its sheath. With one final blow, he used the sword to cut off the giant's head. When the Philistines saw that their mighty hero was dead, they panicked and turned to flee in terror. The Israelite army raised a great, thunderous shout of victory and chased their enemies out of the land. Against all human odds, the simple shepherd boy had won the battle and saved his nation through pure faith and courage.